Good afternoon, and thank you everybody for being here. We have a change of environment. I wanted my colleagues up here on the dais to enjoy the view from the windows of our great airport and our beautiful mountains. This is going to be a one-time only. It's an experiment. So anyway, welcome everybody, and I would like to call to order the meeting of the San Bernardino International Airport Authority, today being Thursday, October the 28th, 2021, and it is approximately 2:10 p.m. Madam Clerk, if you would proceed, please, with the roll call.
Certainly. Members, please state your name for the record. Members from the City of Colton.
Frank Navarro.
Thank you. Member from the County of San Bernardino, 3rd District.
Dawn Rao.
Thank you. Member from the City of Highland.
Penny Lilburn.
Thank you. Please note Member McAllen is in the audience. And members from the City of San Bernardino.
Fred Charette.
Thank you very much. Looks like we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have no closed session items on today's agenda, so we will move on to our open session. And if I could please ask Mr. Fred Charette to lead us in the pledge.
Sure. Thank you. I'm glad to. There's a flag somewhere around here, but everyone, join me as we pledge to our country.
There is one at the fore, sir.
All right.
Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Charette. Madam Clerk, any items to be added or deleted from today's agenda?
Nope, not that I know of. Mr. Burrows?
No items.
All right, thank you. Moving on to item F, any conflict of interest disclosures from commission members? Seeing none, hearing none. Moving to item G, informational items. Number 2, informational items by Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr. Burrows.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Commissioners. We do want to start with just a reminder that yet again, SBD, along with San Manuel and some support from our friends at Stater Brothers and a whole lot of other folks, are going to host the Turkey Trot again here on Thanksgiving Day. And our very own Nick Person, our airport manager, redesigned the course himself. And for those that want to get out and earn their turkey dinner, we welcome everybody out for that. And this one will actually go. The course will run along the runway protection zone in a loop, so you get to run out on the airport for the first time. And not my idea, but if Nick lets me do it, we're going to do it. So
That's on Thanksgiving.
it's on Thanksgiving Day, yeah. And it starts at the domestic terminal. So we've got a flyer in the packet, but just sbturkeytrot.com for those that want to show up. And I would love to have everybody out. So the next one is Finance and Budget Committee. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time earlier today. Mr. Cousineau, anything to report out on that?
No, we had a very good meeting, and everything's on track, and we're moving right along where it should be. The only other item is that we discussed the audit, and the audit's on track where we thought it would be.
Good. All right. And then last but not least, we, obviously along with your other agencies, organizations, with the changes in Brown Act, adapted to a similar format to many of your jurisdictions, but Mr. Huber, of course, is available if there's any questions. Scott, anything to add on that? Okay. All right, that concludes our reports.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item H, commission consent items. This is our consent calendar. Are there any items? Do I have a motion to approve today's consent calendar?
I'll move the consent calendar. Second.
Motion by Mayor Lilburn and a second by Supervisor Rao to move the consent calendar items 3 through 8. Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes. So again, we have a motion by Member Lilburn and a second by Member Rao. Please state your vote for the record. Member Navarro.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Charette.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Rigsby.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Rao.
Yes.
Thank you. And Member Lilburn.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to Commission action items number 9. This is status of policies and procedures update for the San Bernardino International Airport Authority, consistent with previously approved agency policies. Ms. Pritchett, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Traditionally, in the month of October, staff prepares and presents updates to our agency policies and procedures which guide the day-to-day operations of the agency consistent with policy. Due to a number of regulations that are coming through Sacramento, we are asking an extension of this to be presented in January, so we have time to digest and interpret and actually implement the legislation that's coming down. So we will prepare the item for January, and we'll be happy to discuss any changes at that point. Thank you.
Okay. This is a receive and file item. There's no need for vote, so we move on to item number 10. Item number 10 is to consider and adopt proposed budget adjustments for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. Mr. Cosino, if you would please, sir.
Thank you. This item is several changes that have come due to changes in estimates and conditions at the airport. 5 items in particular. There's an increase in construction costs related to the fuel farm expansion. That's discussed. Office Building 759, which was our old admin building many years ago, is being refurbished. So there is an increase there for funding. We also, this item contains a budget adjustment for the rented refueler that we're able to find, and there's a budget item further on in the agenda on that, or an item to approve that purchase, or not purchase, excuse me, but just a flat out rental to cover us during the fourth quarter for that. And then there's a multi-year prepayment for FAA reimbursement grant, in which we basically prepay them and then they draw down from it. And then finally, there is a gate improvement project over at the sheriff's hangar that is requested too. Those are discussed in the table. The total amount we're requesting for a budget change is in the area of approximately $740,000 increase in expenditures. Revenue and cash are on hand, or will be incoming through the year to cover that, as well as we have one budget transfer to help with that as well. And you can find that once again on the table. And with that, we ask you to consider and adopt these budget adjustments.
Thank you, Mr. Coulson. Is there any public comment for this item, Madam Clerk?
I have no public comments in front of me, and it seems that we have none in the audience.
Thank you. Any comments from commissioners on this item? Questions? Hearing none, then, excuse me, the chair will entertain a motion to approve item number 10.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a approval motion by Mr. Charette and a second by Mr. Rigsby. Madam Clerk, if you would please, to the roll call vote.
Yes. We have a motion by Member Charette and a second by Member Rigsby. Please state your name for the record. Member Navarro.
Yes.
Your vote, excuse me. Member Rigsby.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Rao.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Lilburn.
Yes.
Thank you. And Member Charette.
Yes.
Thank you. The item passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 11. Item 11 is to approve a change order on number 1 to the contract with Bodell Construction Company for an additional amount not to exceed $306,467 for the fuel farm expansion project. Mr. Jeff Barrow, please.
And Mr. Gibbs is going to field this one for Jeff.
Okay, Mr. Gibbs, go ahead. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So as you can actually see this project from where we're sitting today. This is a little bit unusual. Normally can't see this from the auditorium, but if you look over where those large trucks are, all of our fuel farm trucks, that's where the fuel farm construction site is actively underway. And it's a pretty large project, but there were a few unforeseen conditions that have come up during the course of construction. And because of that, we've got a change order in front of you today in the amount of $306,000, $306,467. And the change orders are included in the packet here, but it has to do with wall joints that were required for earthquake, seismic activity, an automatic transfer switch for backup generation, and some other minor items, as well as some unforeseen conditions in the footing. And so that combined amount is what the change order is for, which is a $306,000. So this is about 5% of the project cost so far. And at this point, there are no other unforeseen conditions that would lead to future change orders. That's, of course, subject to change, but Jeff in particular is working very closely with the engineering team and making sure the interests of the agency are front and center, but he does not see future ones taking place for this project. So it's a pretty impressive feat to go with this small of a change order at this stage of the project, and staff recommends a passage of this change order.
And if it pleases the commission, Jennifer, I think we've got a progress photo of the construction. There you go. So you will very soon be able to see this tank rising up, not down. And that substructure there is where most of the effort has been. And that's some serious concrete in there. Yep. So it's still in the cure phase right now. But having been out there over these past weeks with the team, they're working hard. And what's estimated completion as of? Yeah,
so estimated completion, there's a pretty tight timeline on this project. We've got a great contractor, and he is held to his schedule. It's supposed to be completed in February.
Okay, good.
And thankfully, with the other requests we're making, with the leasing of a truck and so forth, that'll get us through fourth quarter. And then once this tank is up and running, we'll be in great shape.
Good. Yeah, look forward to that. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment or requests on this item?
I have no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions from commissioners on this item? Hearing none, then the chair will entertain a motion to approve item 11. Approve the change order number 1 to the contract.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Supervisor Rao and a second by Mayor Milburn. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Certainly. We have a motion by Member Rao and a second by Member Lilburn. Please state your vote for the record. Member Navarro?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Rigsby?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Rao?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Lilburn?
Yes.
Thank you. And Member Charette?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The item passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 12. Item number 12 is to ratify a 12-month lease of one EAM Ramstar 10,000-gallon Jet A refueler truck with National Equipment Leasing, LLC, in the amount of $92,706.25. Mr. Costello, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a Ramstar, as a 10,000-gallon Jet A for $92,706.25 for this fiscal year. The FBO staff did a fantastic job in locating this rental item. It is not a lease purchase, but we needed it to cover it due to the supply chain interruption we've had. We have two 15,000K refuelers that were ordered early last year and are still being manufactured, and we're not expecting delivery of those now until late December at the earliest, and most likely after the beginning of the year. So this particular refueler was key to providing services, refueling services to our aircraft coming into the airport. And with that, we ask you that you ratify this item.
Okay. Madam Clerk, any public comment on this item?
I have no public comments.
Questions or comments from commissioners on item number 12?
Mr. President, I have a question.
Mr. Rigsby, please go ahead.
I'm wondering why the rental is so expensive when it's about 10% of the purchase cost of a 50% larger truck, just for 1 year.
I would say it's supply and demand. We've been looking for items to go ahead and rent, primarily all over the country, focused heavily in the Southwest region and everything, and even on the West Coast. This particular refueler is one that was available in Ohio.
And it's about $11,000 to ship it. I'm wondering, as expensive as it is, I think it should be able to do donuts in the parking lot.
I'll leave that up to Mr. Gibbs and Mrs. Pritchett to sit there and cover the insurance.
That was not a challenge, Mr. Gibbs.
Yeah, yeah, I was going to say, maybe we can get Mr. Gibbs to do some drifting out there. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I think they're limited to 25 miles per hour, so
You can
They
still
don't go
drift.
that fast.
kind of hard to get it done.
You can still drift.
Yeah.
I will make the motion.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rigsby
I'll second it.
and a second by Councilmember Charette to approve item number 12. Madam Clerk, please.
Yes, thank you. We have a motion by Member Rigsby and a second by Member Charette. Please state your vote for the record. Member Navarro,
Yes?
Member Rigsby,
Yes.
Member Rao,
Yes.
Member Lilburn,
Yes.
and Member Charette.
Yes.
Thank you. Item passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 13. This is a business plan update. Mr. Burrows.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So our executive ad hoc committee met some weeks back, and we walked through some of this material. Got some feedback at that meeting. It was actually in this very space, so it's nice to have everybody here for this. But we'd like to kind of walk through where we ended with that discussion and solicit your thoughts as well, so kind of where the airport is in evolution right now. So Jennifer, if you could, the next slide. And I think my colleagues and Mr. Gibbs and I will walk through this. We want to spend a little time on the market segments. This is not new to many. Yes, yes, sir.
Audience out there?
It is. That's the screen there. So
Okay,
the
got
public
it.
can see
Thank you.
it.
Got it.
And as you know, we've been working on growing these business lines for many, many years. And we're happy to report that progress has been made and is being made in each one of them. But as an airport, we are, limited by a few things. Funding is always one. That's not unique to this airport. That's all airports. But also how much space we have, physical space on the ground. And so this exhibit here shows you kind of where each of the segments have, been and currently are, and, where those various growth areas have occurred. So obviously air cargo being the most recent, but our maintenance, repair, and overhaul is strong as it's ever been. So we have multiple providers out here, everything from aircraft painting to all types of aircraft repair parts, from corporate aircraft on up to the largest airframes flying out there. So that gives us a nice diversification in the rental portfolio. And then, of course, the growth of the fixed base operator and our general and corporate aviation has been off the charts in recent years, too. So anything to add on that one, Mark?
No, that's a great overview.
Okay, so the next slide kind of takes us through where we are, and I'll have Mark walk you through that a little bit, because, if you were to see this graphic from the last business plan update, these bubbles would have been different sizes. So go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And as Mike mentioned, this is a graphic we've used in the past, and it's it's really designed for a quick view to see how our market segments are growing. So with the 4 different market segments on the airport, the one that has seen a lot of traction in recent years is air cargo. Consequently, that bubble has grown quite a bit. And that's pretty interesting because it's a new market for us. 5 years in this industry is not a lot. And in that short time period, air cargo has grown dramatically. And that's not to say that the others haven't grown. MROs, like Mike said, we've got 4.5. Would you say 4.5? Maybe it's 4.6. I'm not
Depends
sure.
if they claim it, that this week.
That's grown as well, as has jet traffic and corporate traffic in particular through the FBO. Nonetheless, with the growth of the other business segments, air cargo has outpaced them all in recent years.
And I would just add in the special time in fourth quarter that we find ourselves, to Mr. Cousineau's earlier supply and demand comment, the sort of sub-segment where we've seen in the last couple of months significant interest activity is in what's called the freight forwarding community. These are people that are working hand in hand with all of the good folks that are dealing with our port situation. And space is everything right now, and A lot of work with CBP Customs because we need their consents to do the drop-in charters. And that remains, almost every couple of hours, Mark or I or one of us is on the phone with one of those integrators trying to help them, find capacity out here at SBD, and we continue to do that. So stay tuned on that front. There will certainly be more to come, but we will be back, hopefully meeting with U.S. Customs here in a few weeks.
Yeah, on the airport?
On the
or
airport.
In different...
No, air freight.
Okay.
Air freight. And these are the people that then offload the air freight, get it onto trucks and elsewhere. So we have a based freight forwarder, Prime Flight, that has done that. So when we get the large charters like the Antonovs and things like that, they're the ones that are doing that for the ultimate, company that charters the aircraft. And they're great, but many of their friends now want to be at SBD too. And we love that. But we've got to work out all the pieces. So at any rate, go ahead, Mark, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, you bet. So the next slide kind of shows this trend graphically. Yeah.
Just for the record, Mayor Valdivia is present at the meeting.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And to show the same trend graphically, air cargo, again, this is a fairly new market for us. If you look at as recent as 2016, even 2017, we're near dead last, industry speaking. So any given year, there's typically between 130 and 140 airports in the United States that serve dedicated air cargo. We were dead last during that time period. And of course, prior to 2016, that line would have continued to be flat. But since that time, it's grown dramatically. And a lot of that, Mike and I like to show you what these trends look like, but the reality is we've had a lot of great support from the Commission to really, lay the foundation for the future of the U.S. economy as it's continued to transition. And as the logistics and supply chain has continued to transition, we've got the facilities and the focus, to help propel the airport forward in the years ahead. And you're seeing some of that take place as this trend line has gone straight up. So where we landed in 2020 is 59th busiest cargo airport in the country. Given that 2021 is not complete, we do expect that to be in the mid-30s next year and continuing to grow for the foreseeable future in air cargo.
And Mark is quick to note on that 2020 figure, that doesn't include any Amazon Air service because they were still finishing construction. So this year, of course, has all three of the national carriers in there.
Where are the top busiest, just out of curiosity, geographic-wise?
Yeah, that last count?
As far as carriers go?
No,
Not
airports.
who, but where?
Oh, the busiest. So LAX is in the top 5. I want to say Ontario is number 9 or 10.
Really?
Atlanta, the ones you'd expect, Atlanta, Chicago, Miami, those are all, top 10. SFO's a little further down the list. They're about, they're in the late teens.
I think one of the ones I found surprising was Ted Stevens up in Anchorage.
Right.
Yeah, and of course Anchorage, and of course the hubs for FedEx and UPS. So Memphis and Louisville are top 5.
Yeah, Anchorage has a unique situation, and the folks up there pretty well. They're fun people, but as cold as it gets in Alaska, they're geographically positioned in the exact right spot for what's called tech stops or customs clearance because people have to refuel flying over, and so they're right there, and they just stand back and say, "Welcome to the neighborhood."
Wow.
So their fuel numbers, I mean, they love teasing me about the fuel numbers. I'm like, okay. But we got sunshine, okay, All right. You want to talk about the next segment?
Sure. So yeah, of course we have, the 4 different business segments, and one of those is commercial passenger. And kind of like with air cargo, kind of like with corporate, if you were to go back a handful of years, we had very little foothold in any of those markets. But the investments were made in the facilities to be able to handle it when that day comes. And that holds true for our commercial passenger market as well. You know, as I like to say, our facilities are right-sized. We're sitting in one of them today. It's, you know, it's a nice facility, but it's also sized correctly for, you know, gaining entry into the market without having to wait years to go through entitlements and construction to build the facilities. And interestingly, the facility that we're sitting in today, the international terminal, you know, what makes as the old adage in the industry goes, if you've seen one airport, you've seen one airport. Typically, when airports have charter flights, they're not 777s and wide-body aircraft, and they're not international. Well, in our case, this is the facility that our charters come through. They rarely go through the domestic terminal, but when we do have charters, they're typically large and they're typically international. So it's a good position to be in, and we are seeing a lot of great signs on the horizon for the passenger service market, and that includes charters as well. But more importantly, and I should say most importantly, is we have the facilities, they're right-sized, and they're with the increased visibility we've seen in the other markets and the other support services on the airport. You know, we kind of have a little hotbed with all of the ancillary services that a carrier would need. Because the reality is, if you look at a cargo carrier and you look at a commercial passenger carrier, the pilots and the aircraft and all of their own internal infrastructure, they don't know the difference between what's in the back, right? You've got the same, you're flying under the same flight rules, you have the same ground support and planning services, same fuel procurement. It's very similar, and it's helped us prove the market, and it's getting us a lot more visibility in the passenger market segment as well.
And so if you were this weekend in this building, we were processing a military charter, customs clearance, cargo and the like. And so, believe it or not, this terminal does get used. I mean, not in the traditional sense that most people think, but customs does support us, you know, as those come in. The key with that is getting, like we had finally with cargo, scheduled passenger service, because, you know, that is something that then is, you know, finally at that upper echelon of where we've all, you know, trying to get the airport finally. Next slide, if you could, Jennifer. So this kind of talks about the various pieces of what you have to do for commercial passenger. Obviously, there's some upfront expense. Mark talked about the biggest, which you all have already made, thankfully, in the facilities, the physical plant, the footprint, everything around it that has to support the operation. But with passenger service, there's certain elements that you have to have, whether it be domestic or international or both. But there's also a revenue side on the back end of that, and it takes a few years to cross that line and break even, which, if you look at the next slide, kind of depicts that in, you know, a basic mock-up forecast there. And it shows kind of the difference between domestic and international. Why is international different? Well, as you all, you know, have seen, you know, until volumes get to a certain level, we have to pay for the customs service. And there is some offset because you can put a surcharge on the ticket to get some of that back. But you have to, as they say in the real estate game, chum the market a little bit, as airports do. And eventually that picks up and carries you forward too. Whereas the domestic service, you don't have to have those additional officers. TSA staff actually come, you know, provided. They actually rent space in the terminal. So there's some offsets in there. But you know, both are, you know, important to airports and to, obviously now more than ever, the flying public. I think we can accommodate that. So the next slide kind of goes through the sort of path you take with the carriers, and Mark can talk to some of those steps here. So if you see that ladder effect up there, that kind of talks about the components of what you got to have to make the formula work. Touch on that.
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, these are kind of the steps in passenger service to get to the end goal. And, you know, it kind of depends on what the market is. And in our case, we do have the option of both domestic and international. And given our market and, the complexities of, the makeup of Southern California, international travel is a big component of that. So it's a natural market for us, and we have the latitude to go into both and or either, which is fantastic. But, a little bit more to the point, once things really get moving, getting a letter of intent from an airline to begin operation is really what starts that ball rolling with all of the various federal organizations that are involved in passenger service, whether that's customs or whether that's the FAA or TSA. They all play a very important role in that success, and it starts with that letter of intent from an airline and their commitment. So,
And I would just say that, as you've seen out there with, people, either flying or choosing not to fly, depending on, their preference at this point, what the pandemic has done with air carrier service is really made them much more cost focused, which you would think would just be a natural. It's not that they never looked at cost, it's just they really look at cost now, whereas before they did a lot of analysis on the revenue side, and that's where we actually do better because of the fee structure, because of the right size facilities, and that's kept us busy these last several months. But many of them are very, very tepid in the respect of seeing how their numbers are coming back, and thankfully, several of them are doing quite well. So a lot of work in this space right now, and getting through this fourth quarter is going to be a key metric. Spring and summer started looking incrementally better industry-wise, especially with the U.S. market and our region. And we could go to the very last one, Jen. This is kind of where we ended up. Obviously, we have two business units here, the airport proper and then the executive operation, the FBO at Luxaver. And, picked, 2-3, focal points, and that's kind of where we concluded the last ad hoc discussion. With that, I'm happy to answer any other questions or any feedback you may have.
Okay. Any public comment on this item, Jennifer?
No public comment.
Public commissioners, any comments or questions of staff on this item?
I just, Chair,
Yes, please do.
we haven't been asked to receive any middle of the night flights here unexpected.
No, not at this point. I mean, with some of the charters, there's time to time delays, but that's more on the corporate side that we see. It's been pretty rare that something's been that far off, because particularly the fact that we operate the FBO and that we have our customs guy on site. Between those two, if it's an international, we get a heads up from the customs folks, or we get it from the FBO because they're asking for fuel or rental car or something. So we can always gauge it and again, respond if needed. But for the most part, pilots like to be where they want to be when they want to be. They're traditionally planners by nature. I mean, you've met one right here. And it's been fairly on point. But once in a while, something happens, they need to get a part checked or something. Most of the time when that happens, it won't show up till the next day. But as airports go, it's kind of like the freeway. If somebody's late getting somewhere, they still get on the freeway.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Welcome, Mayor Valdivia. Good to see you. Okay. This item is a receive and file. And moving on to item number 14. This is to consider and discuss the SBD Good Neighbor Program quarterly report. And Mr. Gibbs.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So as the airport continues to grow and evolve, we're also very mindful of the community around us and develop the Good Neighbor Program in order to gauge community issues, community concerns, get in front of them, and also to provide some tools so they can, understand really what airports are about and what to expect. And it's really what the Good Neighbor Report and program is about. So quarterly, we like to report to the commission as to what those activities have been for the most previous quarter. In this case, that ended in September. And I'm very pleased to actually, you guys have only known Rosemary Barnes to be in a box on a TV, but she's actually a real person. And she's here with us today. And we work very closely with Rosemary and the Aviatrix team who have a career under their belts in this very type of thing. You know, I think it's also worth mentioning, Rosemary and Amber are taking a trip up to Reno here in about a week or so, and the most prestigious of the aviation organizations is a group called ACI, stands for Airports Council International. And the Good Neighbor program is up for a national award. So it'll be, we're excited, and I know that Rosemary and Amber are going to present us well. No guarantees, but we're excited
No
about
pressure now that he put you on the spot.
no pressure.
Rosemary.
How many are they competing against?
We have one other one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Even
Made
if
the
you
cut.
don't win, that's
Top
quite the
two.
accomplishment.
Well done.
We put a lot of effort into just the awards. We're very excited. Again, I'm Rosemary Barnes, representing ABS Communications. Katie Franco is about all this news coming out, even about commercial service, so thrilled, whatever that means for. So wanted to get into the report, but before I do, I want to kind of look back to see how we've done with engagement with our community. Jennifer, if you wouldn't mind going to page 4, please. So some of these metrics you see here, we actually submitted these for the award because these awards are all about metrics. You know, how you did, it's one thing putting a program forward, but how did you do? Target audiences. So these are the metrics we pulled the program, and pulled out the SBD Good Neighbor website. It's a mini site as part of the larger airport brand. And then, of course, quarterly newsletters and the social media channels. When you see the page views there, just to define over 10,000 total page views. That's the main page as well as inner pages in that SBD Good Neighbor website page. So thrilled about that. We specifically pulled out viewers from the border cities. You know, the community members that we hear the most from, of course, San Bernardino and Highland, Loma Linda, Colton, and Redlands. So we specifically focused on at least those 5 cities. So for that year period, we had about 1,500 page views from those community members in those cities. And then in just users in general, we had about 3,100. So we're making inroads here. For 1 year, brand new program, we're doing quite well. Amber and I together have published 5 issues, and we're finalizing issue number 6 right now, so that will go to publication next week. But for the 5 issues for that first year, we had a 43% open rate. That's pretty significant. I've always heard that for any newsletter, 30% is pretty darn good, so we're almost at 50%, so we're really pleased with that. And then we've organically just grown those subscribers, boosting posts out to target audiences. So over 300 people are now subscribed to our newsletter, including all of you here. And then social media has been a significant way for us to engage with our audiences, especially during them. So we're on 5 channels now, and in that 1 year period, we posted 129 times specifically about the program, and we had about a growth of 53% across all those channels. So again, really pleased with how that all has come together. What the powers that be say. I'm going to jump all the way to page 17, please. We're going to get into the data. Okay, so really good news for this past quarter, July, September. The comments were down, the number of households reporting were down compared to the previous quarter, and that's despite the growth in airport and aircraft operations and our ongoing outreach to our neighbors. So really thrilled about that. Let's go to page 18, please. And all of this is, of course, in your package. You can review this later, too. So for the quarter, we had well, I mean, I'm thrilled because this time last year it wasn't so great. Last quarter, we had 24 noise comments coming from 14 distinct households. That's a significant decrease. We see Highland with a little less than 50% of the overall comments, and then 5 and under for the remainder of those other communities that reported. But again, a big difference compared to the same time last year. Let's go to page 19, please. We'll look at what those numbers look like compared to last summer when we had the Apple fire and dealt with. So you see the 24 and 14 for this past quarter, and then look where we were for the last year. Pretty big drop, but again, thank goodness it's been a much quieter, easier summer, especially for our aerial firefighters based here on the airport. Okay, and here we go, the comments by type of the 24 comments. 12 of those were flying over the home, where it was more the significant concern from the community members from there. Filing method, we've had a little bit of a few more callers this past time compared to last quarter, but about over 80% of our members are finding that the web form is the easiest way to share their comment. Let's go to page 22. Okay, and then there's that breakdown again, and then how community members, whether they would like to be a response from the airport staff, which of course there's always the goal request is made. So that's the breakdown. Page 23. Again, as we've always showed the past few years, past year or so, those comments are typically coming from that 5 to 10 mile radius around the airport. And this next slide will show what that looks like. So those 24 comments. Comments that we received that we actually have addresses to attribute to. So just want to make sure that was those that actually give us a defined address. And now we'll go to the final comment, the final thoughts. Okay, so good news to share. Pleasantly surprised as I worked on the report. Everything's been down. Comments, household reporting, especially compared to the same time last year. As I said, it was a less destructive wildfire season. Thank goodness so far. Thank goodness for the rain. We'll see what the next 2 weeks bring. And then ongoing community outreach through the program. Amber and I continue to engage the community. Again, we're boosting posts last week, trying to reach out to community members just to make sure they're on board, they know about the program, and they know that this is a resource for them. So, and then I know the operations staff continue to educate the pilots, especially the base pilots here for the firefighting pilots, so that's an ongoing outreach there too. And again, everything's in the packet. Have any questions? Happy to share. Mark and I can answer anything you have there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report. A lot of information, and it looks like the program's really working. And it's always comforting to know that some of those complaints are going down. Either we're all getting used to the airplane noise, or we're just ignoring it.
Well, that's a lot of just that education, right?
Yes, the outreach is what really works. Do we have any public comment on this, Jennifer?
No public comment.
No public comments?
Just a couple comments and questions, I guess. So I continue to see that Highland is kind of in the higher bracket of the noise complaints. Are those coming from the same households?
Yeah, that's a great question. The majority are from one household, but there are, I want to say 4 that are make up about 80% of the comments.
Okay. And now that Amazon and the flights are increasing, so I guess we're not seeing any more additional comments because those flights are increasing. But when you're on social media, and I often see people talking about or complaining about, do you ever jump in on the conversations?
No. No, we never
Okay.
jump in on
Okay.
on those kind
Smart.
of forums. Well, we try to take a very pragmatic approach. I mean, there's a lot of good practices in the industry as to how to properly and effectively deal with noise issues. And we decided early on that was not a path that we were going to take. But it is an interesting trend because aircraft activity has increased quite a bit in recent years,
Right.
and aircraft have been getting bigger here. Yet we've seen a big decline in the number of complaints year over year. And as Rosemary alluded to, a lot of that has to do with it was a very quiet Forest Service season. So what we're really finding is that the biggest concern, the biggest impact that people are experiencing is not from the cargo aircraft, not from the corporate aircraft.
The fire.
Surprisingly, it's from the fire aircraft. And in years past, to go back maybe 5 years or so, when we would receive noise complaints, and there was a time when I used to receive them, if it was a Forest Service bird, they said, forget it, I'm sorry. We love those guys, they're fantastic. But last year we didn't experience that. They were still concerned even when they were Forest Service. So that was a bit of an anomaly. But this year with a really low impact that we saw with Forest Service, it drove down our numbers.
Thank you.
Last year, very hot.
Everywhere, we're indoors more with COVID, so there's a lot of stress on everybody last year too. You all remember?
Well, and I fielded a couple where, like Mark said, they wanted to confirm that it was a Forest Service aircraft, but they also wanted to know, is the fire near me? And that's natural. I'd be asking the same thing.
Any other, Mr. Rigsby, please?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what's the deal with these two houses in Harupa Valley?
Sometimes there are misplaced noise complaints, and it's not always easy to discern which airport aircraft are going to. So Harupa Valley, it could be us, it could be Ontario. It's kind of hard to say.
So they can't tell east from west?
Even some of the bigger birds fly a pattern, and I live in Riverside, and I see aircraft going to Ontario, making the turn to Ontario, turning left or turning right to go to San Bernardino. So it just kind of depends, and if they don't know the flight patterns very well, that they could very easily be mistaken for our aircraft.
Yeah. And the downside is that Mark watches FlightAware for fun.
Okay.
And when I look at the numbers too, I
discussed that with Mark and Nick. One thing that popped out for me too, Mr. Rigsby, and also one in Cedar Pines Park up in the mountains, and looking at that's a new homeowner. So the person may just be interested, okay, just has been in this home less than a year, just kind of interested and wants to learn more and be educated. So reached out to the airport to learn what that was about. So I think that's really good program making.
But with Rosemary here, I do want to just punctuate the fact that, as excited as we are, as cool folks at ACI are taking note of this program, so does the FAA. That's a big part of why airports do this, encourage it. And whether, folks have a concern or a question, the good news is people are starting to reach out, and we want.
Mm-hmm.
So, well done.
Okay, any other comments or questions from commissioners? Rosemary, thank you very much. Very informative.
so good to see you all in person. Wish us luck.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 15. This is the review of status of the action plan for the San Bernardino International Airport Authority through December the 31st. Mr. Burrows, if you would, please.
Yes, so month of October, like prior months, equally busy. Different things going on in preparation as we are now in the thick of the fourth quarter. But I did want to touch on the international trade front. I've mentioned this previously that from our UAS center to the airport itself, continue to get strong interest internationally. Both in the aviation spectrum, but also commercial industrial sectors. And happy to report that our partners at the International Trade Administration yet again wants us to continue the tradition of the World Trade Week Conference. So that is being calendared as we speak. Amber's already, locked in some dates in May, which is World Trade Month. And we're getting significant interest from Department of Commerce staff and officials to be a part of that. In addition, was able to hear from our Dutch counterparts, our friends at the Dutch Logistics Council, who actually believe they're going to be able to make the trip and physically attend this next one, or at least soon thereabout. So that's exciting news, and all of those relationships, as we, again, at your direction, continue to pursue and strengthen the relationship with U.S. Customs, certainly help our position in the global market, which we are in. Going into next month, do plan on a legislative report for you. Obviously, you're all tracking what's going on at the national and state level, but particularly on the infrastructure funding and many of those other programs. And, every day is different on that front, and we will keep our ear to the ground and eye to the telly and be back at you next month.
Moving on to item J, added or deferred items. Madam Clerk, none?
Nope, none.
Thank you very much. This is a time for the public to give their opinion or their comments on anything not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment?
There are no public comments coming forward, nor do I have any public speakers.
All right, thank you. Public comment is now closed. And commission member comments. We'll start. Mayor Valdivia.
My apologies for being a few minutes late. I really do appreciate the update. And principally, the SB Good Neighbor program, I really admire a lot of the work that you're doing, and thank you for your commitment to our airport and the community, especially triaging a lot of those complaints. That's really key for us as we also provide responses to our neighbors. I think the good work that we're doing here also should be evident as part of that community newsletter. My only recommendation is that we I think you had suggested on slide number 4 that it was 400 individuals or 300 subscribers. If you could contact our respective member agencies and if we could provide our community newsletter to them, and there's an option or opt-out type of deal so we can expand that. But I know we have about 29,000 residents in our city that subscribe to the mayor's newsletters, and so we'd be happy to share that with you on an opt-out, and they can, if they don't want the good neighbor news, they can opt out. But I think it'd be good to stream that up and grow the audience so that people clearly understand the good news that's happening here. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lilburn?
I agree with that, reaching out to our cities so we can work with you as well and reach out to our constituents because they may not know about the Good Neighbor. So I appreciate that. But I just wanted to say, if you look to the northeast, that's the city of Highland, and it is beautiful. So thanks for this gorgeous view here today.
They chose your seat carefully, ma'am.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Rigsby? Thank you. Supervisor? Mr. Surratt? No, thank you. For myself, just again, thanks to Mike and the staff for assembling this for us today. That was something that I requested when we were at our ad hoc committee.
We're ordering more flags as we speak.
You know, the view is outstanding from here. And yeah, Highland is over there. Colton is over there. Anyway, thank you, staff. And Rosemary, thank you for all that information. And I'm going to echo the comments made by Mayor Lilburn and Mayor Valdivia regarding the outreach to the communities. I will definitely put it on our social media over there in Colton. Yeah, all right. Thank you. All right. There being no other business to attend to for the San Bernardino International Airport Authority, this meeting is now adjourned.